So here I've opened up the provided Kitbash 3D kit. It's the Cyber Mini Kit, which they gave out for free like a couple of years ago, so I have no qualms sharing this pack with you guys. Here's like the default scene setup from that file. If I go into the shaded view, you'll see it will have to load probably, and if it becomes pink, that's because these textures are not actually linked properly to the file. So if you want the textures on this file, you have to go to File, External Data, and find missing files. And then you can just locate the folder where they should all be, and it will go through and automatically relink those for you. So it took a second for those to load, but you'll see that they actually have some really nice texture work ready to go. These are a great source of background stuff for renderings or drawings, but also it's great to just see how they have put these pieces together, how they have modeled them, how they have textured them, and you'll get a sense for the bar. This is quality work. This is the professional standard. I encourage you to learn from them. They're super cool. But what I'm going to do for this exercise is I'm going to take one of these buildings and I'm going to kitbash with it. I'm going to make some kind of crazy new abomination. And my advice for you on this would be to not pick the most interesting one, because the most interesting one will probably be the hardest one to bash. You could always prove me wrong, but I think out of all of these buildings, I'm actually going to pick this one. This one right here. May not look super spectacular, but we'll see where it's going to go. I'm just going to spend a second here to go through, and I'm going to export this object out to my other file. One really quick and easy way to do this is to just identify which collection it is, because you'll see that this file has a lot of stuff in it, and if I just collapse these collections, I can just one by one turn them off until I find it. Because each building is set up as a collection. Oh, there it was. Cool. So now there are a couple ways that I could move this to a new file. And I can see that this is the Future Slums Tower 8 group. The easiest way is to use the append function. But if you want this to be moved to a different software, you probably want to just go ahead and export this as an FBX file. Of course, you can just select all of those pieces. You can see I have the whole collection selected, and then you could say File, Export.FBX. But I'm going to show you really quickly the append method. And I still have, this is my file I was just showing the shader stuff in. I'm going to make a new collection for kitbashing. I'm going to move that sphere into the hidden collection here. I'm going to add that other building in by going to File, Append, and now I need to locate this blend file in my computer, and I'm going to click on that Blender file. Inside that Blender file, it has a few different folder sets. I'm going to go to Collection, and that was the Future Slums Tower 8 group, is that collection in that file I wanted to move, and I just have that collection selected. When I hit Append, it's going to bring all of those files directly in here. And you can see here it's missing those textures again, so I just need to go to File, External Data, Find Missing, and go navigate to that same folder. Now it's going to populate this with all those textures. That's not necessary because I will, at least for most of my process here, I will be removing those textures, but you may want that. Next, I'm going to spend some time speed shopping on Sketchfab for some interesting bash objects. And of course, I'll be using our rubber duck. Here I have a collection lineup. And what I would like you all to do as part of the deliverables is to just line up your isolated components at first. You don't have to spend too long doing this. It's more just so you get a sense of where you started, and then towards the end you'll get to see where you have arrived at. But even this like shading, I'm not even going to bother like relinking the textures for that, because I'm just going to turn it white here in a little bit. But here I'm going to set my camera to view and press Control-Alt-0. So I'm in the camera, but I can't see anything until I get pretty close. So what I need to do is extend the view range, and with the camera selected in the camera details panel, extend its end range. And now I'm in the camera, I'm just moving around as normal, and I'm going to set this to an orthographic camera. What I need to do though now is increase the orthographic scale. And this is where we're going to start. You can even just take a screenshot of this. You don't even have to set up the camera. You could literally just go to the Y view. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the gizmos and everything, and I'm just going to go to View, Viewport Render Image. And now, here we are. This is our starting point. Our nice eclectic collection of stuff. Who knows where this will go? I'm going to leave the camera, turn back my gizmos and overlays, and here I'm just going to begin the bash process. I'm actually going to just do this by taking objects and pieces. I'm even going to go to the default shading so they're all gray or black, and I'm just going to be bashing them together. And I'm going to speed this process up. It will take me probably a couple hours to do on my end, but then I will talk over the sped up version. So the first step in any bash is just playing around with the pieces. This first bash that I'm showing here was definitely the trial run, and was out of the ones I created, the one I was least happy with actually. But I think that's how it generally goes, is you start picking up momentum as you do this process. Now I'm just like copying objects around, really just trying to find relationships between the pieces and making new ones even potentially, like having the duck become part of the building, for example. I was just playing with some different scales of objects, as you see. I just grabbed that one circular component from the robot and start mashing it onto the shell. Here I was actually experimenting a bit with the car framework and potentially thinking about it as a new skeleton to use as a scaffolding for some additional pieces, but as I started playing around with it, I decided that for this first one it was a little bit too involved, and I just wanted to really quickly iterate through ideas. But as I was experimenting, always just feeling around for positions and scales, trying to imagine like how might I start to capture this if I was to capture it. You'll see here I duplicate that building a few times, and these collections start bloating out pretty wide. And as I'm going through, I'm just like turning on the materials to see what that might start to look like, but not really considering too specifically the rendering. Here you'll notice I'm like flopping around a bit with the materials, and this is the long form way of doing the materials. And basically I was just going component by component and then thinking through, okay, what do I want this to be? I ultimately decided though that I would just join all these things together and make them all yellow. And the yellow isn't super close to the duck yet, but we'll get more into that with the rendering. As I was going through, you'll see this material list from the Kitbash 3D is pretty long. And I was manually going component by component and re-choosing the yellow. But the easier way to do this is actually just on the far right hand side. You can just click the minus button through the materials, and you can just remove all the materials except for one, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it. But once the material is applied, then you can just change that material's properties, and it will change it for everything it's applied to. So see, I'm just experimenting some with the color and trying to color match the duck a bit before moving on to the next phase, which will be the next video actually, as we get into rendering.